My mindset is, treat it like a regular game and just, play Clemson ball, of course. And, going to this game, we know, everyone knows how this season been going, but, in this game, the records are thrown out the window, and, it's, Carolina versus Clemson, and, the best team wins on that day. But, growing up, I never really focused on this rivalry. It was always Georgia and Florida. And kind of weird, living down the street from Athens. I was always I'm a Florida fan, so I didn't really find out, how big this rivalry was until I, started getting recruited, by Clemson, and one of my head coaches, or one of my coaches back, in high school was always a big Clemson fan, and he was just, he don't really like Carolina, so I told him if I, as long as I'm, I told him back in 10th grade that, if I'm a quarterback, I don't want to lose to him. So, just treat it like a normal game and, keep it like that.
You treat it like a normal game, but I'm sure last year you found out it's not a normal game.
Right. For, the fans and the people and, just the respect and, just have that, that full year of just, having the, being on top of the state is really big. So, for me, just keep everyone down and just treat it like the other games before. It's the biggest game of the year because it's the Nets, and you just go from there.
Why was it so important last year that you play in it when you had the torn knee, and why was that such a big deal for you to play in that game?
Just for me, I just wanted to finish out the year. My year was up and down with injuries, and just not being able to finish out the Georgia Tech game and not play the Georgia State, and when Sweeney and Danny Poole was, we had that meeting with my parents and saying that, I was able to play, I just wanted to finish out the year, on a good note. So, that was pretty much my reason, and, it came out with the big win.
What were you thinking when you went out one play near the goal line there where it looked like you scored, but they said you were down to one, but you ended up, even without an ACL, juking a guy? Have you looked at that play from that game and thought, man, how'd I do that with no ACL?
I haven't seen it in a while, but I mean, it was just, in that moment, I wasn't, during the game, I wasn't thinking about my knee. I was just out there just playing ball, and I was, for me to be able to go out there and play, Coach Sweeney said I had to be a playmaker and make plays, and I didn't want to be, that person that, holds the team back. So, I just went out there and did what I could, and I did, pretty good. So.
Sweeney took some criticism after that, allowing you to play in that game. Kind of what was your reaction looking back on it, to the whole thing of allowing you to play with a serious injury?
Well, it wasn't his fault. It was my decision. It was something that me and my parents, talked about, and they said if I was comfortable with it, then I was able to play. It's not like we're in, pee-wee or, middle school ball. This is, collegiate football. So, I'm old enough to make my own decisions, and, I want to play, and so he said, if I was, capable of going out there and, making plays, then I can go out there. I really didn't think too much about it because, a week later I was going to have surgery, so there really wasn't anything else I can do to it.
Did you find going into last year's game that week that for the older players, if it was tight or tense at all, just because those older guys, they lived through a 5-year losing streak, or at least parts of it?
I don't really know about the previous years, but I know last year, the older guys and the people that been around, for that, 0-5 streak, they really wasn't tense about the game. They were comfortable, they were excited, and they just had that belief and that trust in the players around them, knowing that we can go out there and turn the whole streak around and just be able to win. And that's what we did. The seniors led us. All the guys that's playing in the NFL right now was a big part of that, and they got the team ready, and we came out with the win.
Compare the Georgia-Florida rivalry to this one. This one's an in-state.
Right.
You found that that's a little bit different in the nature of the way the fans look at the game?
Yeah, of course. It's I mean, it's very big, especially just being in the state and just trying to have the be the top team in the state. So both of them are big, but this one is a little extra because they both in the state, like you said. Yeah, I know earlier in the year they did a lot more, but you know, people, still probably gonna talk about it from 10 years from now, and it was just good to see the Clemson fans, happy and very excited, and a lot of people, come up to me and say that they can go to work now smiling and brag to their Carolina, coworkers and people like that. So, it was pretty cool to just to hear that and see the fans, happier, about that win.
Have you thought at all, reflected much, about how far you've come? This time last year, you went into that game, had injury, you had surgery, you went to all that rehab, and now you're the quarterback in number one team in the country. Has any of that hit you yet of how far you've come?
I think about it all the time, just all the hard work and dedication, and right now it don't seem like, for the outside people that don't know what I really went through, it just seemed easy, and it just came on natural. But it took a lot of time, sacrifice, and just a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, just to wake up early in the morning, do rehab, go to class, and just see my teammates out there, especially in the spring, playing, and I'm just sitting there watching. Even part of the summer, I didn't really get no real football action until fall camp, and so just having those 9 months off was just very hard for me. But the hard work and dedication pays off, and it's paying off right now.
Clemson has been -2 in turnovers 5 times this year. It hasn't cost y'all. Has that been a big point of emphasis that you got to turn that around at this point of the year?
Yeah, sooner or later it's gonna bite us in the butt, but we just been having that luck on our side, and that's one of the big things that one of our goals of winning the game, win the turnover margin, and we try to do that each and every game. Sometimes it don't work out, but we just try to find a way to win, and it's been working out so far.
Last year you had the pressure of trying to break the streak. Now it's a whole different kind of pressure. You're number one. You're trying to keep the playoff celebrations alive, and you're a huge favorite, first time in a long time in this rivalry. Can you kind of compare and contrast the two different levels of pressure? Last year the streak, this year trying to keep the playoff hopes alive.
No, I wouldn't say pressure. I didn't really have any pressure last year. I just went out there and played ball, and it's the same way this year. Just go out there, have fun, and do what we do. I wouldn't say it's pressure, because we know what we are capable of doing, and we know our plan, and we know, what situation we're in. And so, it's a one-game season, so, I mean, there's no pressure for, this team to, go out there and win the game. We just go out there and play Clemson ball and let everything else take care of itself.
Can you critique Deshaun's technique on that throw to run throw, and do you get really excited? Do you enjoy lining up the wide receiver, maybe get the opportunity to catch a touchdown at some point down the road?
Deion, he actually played quarterback in high school, so he a great ball. He kind of underthrew him. If he would have threw him out a little more, he would have scored. But I think he was just excited, just be able to showcase his arm, and his been an athlete and capable of making those plays. And for me to play receiver, it's just something that the coaches want two quarterbacks in at the same time, and try to make a problem for the defense. And who knows what's going to happen later on in the season. I'm fine with it, any situation or any, thing what Coach Sweeney have. It depends on the game, and the stats don't really matter to me. I've said that all year. As long as we get the W's and win the game, that's probably the only stat I care about. The award's gonna take care of itself. People notice me regardless if I win the awards or not. But it's not all about me. It's about this team. It's about Clemson, and it's good to see the younger guys get in and play, and it was great to see the the seniors that don't really get to play, playing their last game at Death Valley. So, we had the game under control, and it was good to see Kelly Bryant get in there and make some big plays, and see the senior and backup O-linemen and receivers get in, and it was great to see a lot of younger defensive guys get in to play also. So, getting guys experience because we're gonna need them later on in the year, and it's great to see that.
What kind of a threat is South Carolina posing to Clemson? They kind of have nothing to lose going into this game. How do you guys approach that?
We probably just approach it the same way. We know that we're going to get every team best shot, and it's nothing new for us. We're in this, #1 team in the country for a reason, and so everyone is gunning for us, and we just be ourselves and play ball, and if we play to our standard, no one can match us. So we just keep doing that and keep moving forward.
Do you know anything about Kerry Orton or any other quarterbacks?
I do not.
Never met him.
No.
Any kind of an appreciation for the route that someone like Orton has to take, just the walk-on route to lead a football team?
He's a walk-on. Oh, it was walk. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, and you start at the bottom, and you just got to put in the time and grind for it. And I know that's what he did, and now he's leading the team, and he probably didn't know how far or how soon he was going to be able to have the opportunity, but now he has it, and best of luck to him.
Vermont Hopper had his best game of the season on Saturday. Do you feel like your rapport with him has been improving over the course of the season?
I mean, every receiver is going to have that type of day, and it was just his time. Whenever the opportunities come for him, he was able to capitalize, and it just depends on in this offense who have the opportunities to make the plays, and his opportunity came in this game, and he capitalized. So who knows what's going to happen the next game. It could be Hunter Renfrow or Travis Scott. So it just depends on the game situation.
How does it feel to be named the ACC Offensive Back of the Week for the 4th time this season?
It's an honor. It feels good, of course. It's a lot of credit goes to my teammates and the players around me that helped me achieve those awards, and it's just another one in the books, and just keep the motivation going and keep moving forward.
Over the course of a year, do you guys pay attention at all to what South Carolina's doing because of the other big in-state school? You win a game story, or worry about, hey, I wonder what they did earlier today, that type of thing?
We haven't been focused on no one around the state or the country. We've been focusing on Clemson, and that's why we've been doing a good job and being successful, because we're focusing on what we have in state, and just 1 week at a time. We get sidetracked with another team, then we're going to slip in and mess up our dreams and goals. So we wasn't focused on what South Carolina had done this year, or any other team around the country. This is probably the only week we're going to focus on South Carolina.
Could you go within 3 weeks or a month and not even know at all, hey, South Carolina's 2-2, they're 0-4, they're 4-0?
Nah, I don't even know their record now. So, it's just, I know that we're 11-0, and we're trying to be 1-0 this week, and it's just, that's how we roll around here.
Do you like having a rivalry game at the end of the season, especially when you have an ACC championship game to play after that? Does it matter to you?
I mean, of course, this game matters, but a game is a game. I'm just happy and blessed, to be able to play in these types of games, and just another one, in the books. And I'm just glad to be back, able to play and play a full year. And so, I mean, that's pretty much about that.
Have you talked to the last quarterback at Clemson that was in the situation you're in right now, that being home with Jordan? Have you had any conversations with him?
I have not.
What are your plans for Thanksgiving, and what are you thankful for?
My plans for Thanksgiving is football, of course, and then right after practice Thursday, go home because I'm only an hour away, and spend time with my family and friends. And what I'm thankful for is just being able to play football, my family, this team, y'all, of course. I say that. No, just to be honest, y'all, of course. I'm thankful for everything. Just to be able to inspire people and just play the sport, and I just love the position I'm in, and I'm gonna embrace it.
Did you get to watch the Panthers Thursday?
I did. I will, and I watched them yesterday too. So.
Do you actually lay back and really take a full day and enjoy, or at least a half day and enjoy Thanksgiving, or is it almost like dinner, hour with the family, but then, man, we got a huge game to play. I can't really embrace the holiday fully.
No, I'm gonna embrace it. You know, I'm gonna spend time. You know, Coach Sweeney's probably gonna tell us the same thing. You know, embrace this time off with the family and just be thankful and just sit back and watch some football and spend time with your family and just be thankful that you have a family and the position that we're in and the opportunity we have. You know, a lot of people don't get this opportunity and a lot of people out there are struggling with things. So. I'm gonna sit back and be thankful, and then when Friday comes around, it's back to going focusing on South Carolina.
Has Lisa told you not to eat too much turkey and stuff?
Nah, she haven't. I think I need to eat some. I'm a little skinny, so try to put on a few pounds.
Before the season, there were a lot of questions about whether or not this co-offensive coordinator thing could work and how effective it may be. But I think after 7 straight 500 plus and 11-0, that the question's been answered. But from your perspective, how well have Tony and Jeff worked to benefit you?
It's worked great. Not for just me. The whole offense, and we just took both of them in, and then we bought into the plan that they had, and everyone is on the same page, and no one is confused. So. It's been working well. We knew from the get-go that it's going to work well because both of those guys are very smart. They learned from Coach Morris, and nothing was going to change. So it's been working great, and we got to keep it going.
Has the personality of the offense changed at all?
No, we still want to be the most explosive and put up points and outscore the other team so we can get the win. What up, Don? Defense is great, man. They hold their side of the ball, and they just been balling. And I respect those guys. I love watching those guys, and they motivate us on the offense to go out there and make plays too. So.
We have number 98. Thanks, Deshaun.
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks to all those guys.